What is up, rad people? Today's day we are finally manual swapping my E36 M3. So, as you can see here, this is my 1997 M3. We picked it up a little over a year ago, and as I may have pointed out in the last video, it's an automatic. It's a high mileage automatic car. We got it for pretty cheap, with the intention of eventually manual swapping it and taking it to the track, instead of the old Miata out there. Carly drove it for a while, drove it to work, commuted in it, but basically for the last 6 months it's just been sitting waiting to get manual swapped. So when Eric and I picked up the silver donor car from my wagon, we pulled the 5-speed out of it, and it's been sitting over here on the ground. So this is an early model E36, I think it's a ZF 5-speed, but it's the same transmission that came in late model E36 328s and M3s, and then early model E46 330s. So we've got that, we've had that sitting around, and I finally made a big order on ECS. Got a slave cylinder, mat cylinder, E36 trans brace. I got a clutch on the way from ECS Tuning, along with a couple other just replacement parts. I got trans mounts, engine mounts, the whole deal. So we're going to get started on it. There's not going to be too much to film. I'm not going to do a time lapse because it's mostly going to be me laying underneath the car, because I'm not planning on pulling the motor out to do it. I'm just going to drop the trans, line up the new clutch, and put it all back together. I'll have to get the drive shaft modified. I'm just going to modify my auto drive shaft and bolt everything back up. And I think that's pretty much it. We'll check in as we go along. I don't have the clutch, and obviously the drive shaft's not modified yet because I haven't put the 5-speed in. So it's going to be a couple day process here. Maybe over the next week or so we'll get it done. But today's the kickoff. We're going to try and get the trans and everything dropped out of it. So follow along. Alright, I've gotten a bit carried away in just diving into this whole thing, but I figured I'd give a little update of what we're working with inside. So I started dismantling the auto console. Basically, this is in here with the onboard computer. You just yank those out. They're just clips, and you unplug everything underneath. Then the whole shifter surround comes out. Well, I guess first you just pull this shifter surround, the auto junk. Pull that out of there. Then then the OBC and the pocket. Then the whole shifter surround, unplug all the window switches. There's a literal ton of things and a lot of similar looking clips. You could probably figure it out, but it's my first time dismantling E36 interior, so I went ahead and labeled everything to try to sort it out. Now there's 3 bolts holding our auto shifter. It's still connected to my trans via the shifter cable here, because my auto's still in. It's almost out. But there's 3 bolts. One here, 2 up front, and I'm just going to pull this little safety clip off and disconnect the shifter cable, undo this latch that's holding it to the whole mechanism. Then I'll be able to remove the entire auto shifter stick thing, mechanism, and our tunnel will be clear for our new shifter that's going in. And that's it for the interior of the car. Give you a little update underneath and what everything else I've been dealing with pretty soon. Alright, I got one more update inside the car here. There's the shifter on the ground. I had 2 more things to unplug. Set this here and you can see there's the 3 bolt holes to lift this whole mechanism. And then right here in the front of it is connected to this, which is your like brake pedal lockout. It's this cable right here, connects into this thing here under that. So you had to pull that out, and then as I mentioned a second ago, I undid this trans, like the shifter cable that directly goes to the trans. It was screwed in here with this locking nut, and then the cable went up here to that little safety clip. So after that, it came out, and then there was whatever, this I don't know, sensor to tell if it's in drive or something, whatever that is. Unplugged. Now it's totally off, and you can see this is the like auto shift boot I just started to pull up, and now that's out, and you can see our transmission. I'm in a filming mood now. I just kind of gave you an update on what's going on the inside, and now I'll give you an update of what I've been working on the outside. I said I wasn't going to film much because most of it's under the car, and that's what it's been. Laid under the car for a bit, and started off, this car was a Chicago car, so it's not the cleanest of all M3s out there. And of course, just like every BMW I've ever taken apart, when I first pulled the exhaust off, I broke every single one of the bolts from the header to the rest of the mid-pipe and the rest of the exhaust. So those all snapped off, gave me a terrible time, but it's over here on the ground. There's the full exhaust. And you can see our drive shaft, got that pulled out next, which again didn't go without troubles. These bolts on there were super crusty and stuck, but it's off. And for our auto to manual transmission, I'm just going to lengthen this drive shaft. So since everything makes sense, this is the front section, this is the rear, we're just going to need to lengthen this front section. So I'll take it to a drive shaft shop down the street soon so they can lengthen that. It's like 3 inches or something, but we're going to double check. Here's my manual trans. As soon as I get the auto rest of the way dropped out, we'll mock that up and measure that front distance from the back of the trans guibo to the center support bearing where it mounts up. And now the trans is not out yet because I ran into a little bit of a struggle. All the bolts are out except for the top bolt. I can show you on the manual trans here. The starter mounts on these 2 bolts here. All the other bolts are out. This is the only one I have left. Some super smart German engineer back in 1993 or whenever they developed this chassis decided that that should be a bolt and a nut, which is the dumbest thing ever. So there's 2 of these E-Torx, E10s or E12s that go into then hold the starter here. On the other side, on the motor side over here, there's a nut. And I got this one out by reaching my hand up on the side of the transmission. Well, I can't get a socket or anything to hold this one. So it's just spinning when I turn the bolt over here, which is extraordinarily frustrating. I tried to get my hand in there and just jam a screwdriver into the spot because you can't possibly fit a wrench, like a closed-end wrench around it. And I'm afraid of losing my finger by jabbing my finger in there because I had an impact on the other side. Anyway, it's pretty much impossible to get off. I jammed some screwdrivers to try to get it to move, and it kept spinning out. I lost a screwdriver sitting on top of the trans now somewhere. So here I am back up top doing what I didn't want to do and taking stuff apart up here. So I took out the airbox and the throttle body. It's sitting up here to see if I could reach down and get the starter down there. Well, I can't reach it, so now I think the intake manifold's going to come off just so I can hold that nut that's on top of the transmission, and then the auto trans will come down. That's it. That's where we're at. We'll update again once this trans is on the floor and once we start measuring drive shaft and getting the manual ready to go back in. All right, here's the nightmare I've gone through to get that last starter bolt. As I mentioned, where is it? It looks like this. For a little display outside of the car, there's a bolt and a nut. Bolt goes through the trans side, nuts on the side of the starter. This is the one that went right here, and this is the one I'm struggling with. So, in order to reach it, I had to pull the intake manifold back, and I left as much connected as possible because I didn't want to take this apart. But it may or may not have made it an absolute nightmare. Alright, here you can see I was successful. See, I stuck my socket on the back of that nut, went back underneath, put my impact on the head, and now you can see there's our other starter bolt. So, automatic transmission is finally coming out. So I will say, I will probably never drop a trans out the bottom again. I thought, I don't know, unless it's a Miata, because I know I can do that in like an hour. But any of these BMWs where the front end comes off, it's so much easier just to pull the motor and trans together. Then you can go over everything while it's out before you do a clutch or do a whatever. It's like I'd spent the same amount of time messing with this intake manifold and everything up top, trying to get that starter bolt out, as I would have to pull the whole front end off and then just yank the whole motor out. And then I could put the new trans on, put the clutch on, align it right, all outside of the car, and it'd be so much easier. However, if you are doing it under the car, pro tip for getting all the transmission bell housing bolts, just get the drive shaft out and then get like 2.5, 3 feet of extensions and just go from the back, the very back of the transmission. You won't need any weird swivel wobble sockets. You can just line them up straight from the very back, and typically that's really easy. I zipped out all but that last starter bolt in like, I don't know, 5 minutes. It was no problem. And then I spent 3 hours messing with and trying to get that last one out before I did everything up top here. Big pain in the butt, but anyway, lesson learned. We'll probably just pull it all the way out from now on. Alright, I'm filthy, but we did it. Kinda, finally. I only forgot a couple things. The trans cooler lines I forgot to disconnect. Oh, now we're making a mess, but it's disconnected. I think we're gonna drop it down. Oh shit. Oh man, we're dumping trans fluid everywhere. I thought I had it free, but now it's not free. Well, I guess it was just stuck on maybe that little like flex plate thing that goes up against the engine. I don't know. I lowered it down enough where the back of the trans was sitting on the ground and the front was still like hanging on the motor, or on the flex plate. So I just came up here with my jack and just slammed it underneath it, and it slid right out. So that's it. We will pull this sucker out of here. Maybe. I don't know if the car is high enough to get this thing out of here. Gosh, this auto trans is heavy. Look at that, we're barely gonna clear. I think if I lift it a little bit. There we go. And I'll ship this in over here. And that's it. I think we're gonna call it here. That's my teardown for everything for the M3, for my auto to manual swap. Thanks for following along. I got some cool stuff coming in for the swap. But yeah, that's it. Auto's on the ground. Next video we'll mock up the trans. Maybe throw the clutch on. First thing I got to do is like as I said before, measure that drive shaft length so I can go drop that off the shop and get it modified. So then I can slap it all back together. Anyway, thanks for following along. Hope you're excited to see manual swapped E36 Estoril sedan, because I'm super excited for it. I can't wait to thrash this thing around. I got a track day scheduled in a couple weeks. Hopefully I can get it done by then. If not, we're gonna have to wait for that November day when the boys all get together and go down to Bowling Green. Anyway, thanks for following along. Keep it rad.